It's weird, I can't upload videos onto YouTube now. Still gonna record this one. I'm gonna talk about philosophy for a second, I guess. The idea that virtue is sufficient for happiness. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, and I thought it was important enough to. It's a Stoic value, from what I learned it from. There's another one from Socrates and Plato's Gorgias, where you could read it from, but it's like the first book chapter thing. But at some point it's stated that it's better to have harm done to yourself than it is to harm another. And Socrates explains it better than I ever could, but he basically cites psychological trauma that comes from regrets. And for those like psychopaths that get away with the abuse of others, like through positions of power or through whatever means that they get it from. His argument was just better than mine, better than my version of trying to share it. But he said these people can't be happy because they would inherently come to harm themselves with this type of unvirtuous behavior, which goes against the efficiency of the overall way of life, generally, of goodness, of appreciating yourself, appreciating others. They're going to wind up toxic, alone, somehow, in some version of their own hell, essentially. Whether they think they got away with it or not, the lack of love, I guess. But anyways, I just believe it. You gotta believe it, I guess, apparently. Better to have harm done to yourself than just to harm another. I think intuitively you can just see it. If you're a good person, yeah, I think that a lot of people will probably be more like, they might be willing to have harm done to themselves rather than do another based on who that other person is. And I don't know if that's, I think it's human, maybe inevitable subconsciously through heuristic means, but I don't think it's right, I guess. I'm assuming right now. But virtue is sufficient for happiness. It's better to just not mess up, not make regrets that you can never take back, because whether you acknowledge them or not, they form everybody's lives in a way that's all connected. And you can tilt the world a little closer to heaven, or you can tilt the world a little closer to hell, no matter what versions of either you believe in or imagine. But yeah, philosophy. Stoicism's all about not the suppressing of emotion, but the acknowledging of it in the moment, staying present rather than escaping that emotion through vices, addiction, through distraction or whatever. It's just about going through it in a way that was Marcus Aurelius, in his book Meditations, he said, not every man whines when he dies. And that's kind of the idea of Stoicism, I think. Tim Ferriss said that a cow in the rain is another good image, and I like that image. Alan Watts said the Maybe Man story I could cite, which I like a lot too. One day, someone from the village loses their horse. Everyone in the village says, "Oh, that's terrible." The next day, the horse comes back. Everyone in the village says, "Oh, that's awesome." Every time that everyone in the village says this, the guy that owned the horses just says maybe. He says maybe when the horse leaves. He says maybe that's cool when two horses come back. Free horse, everyone else says. He just says maybe. The next day, the guy's son tries to train the horse and he falls off and breaks his leg. Everyone says, "Oh, shoot, that's terrible." And he says maybe. And that sounds a little cold-hearted, I thought. But the next day, the conscription army comes and they take every young lad in the village, other than this kid, because he just broke his leg. So everyone says, "Wow, lucky kid." And he says maybe. And that can keep going on, I'm sure. I think that's all that I remember, all that there is. But I like it, and I think that's pretty stoic itself, honestly. It's just about controlling what you can, which is basically the habits inside your mind, and that's all. as well as the habits that you do physically, I guess. Controlling those, maybe not controlling them as much as not mastering them either. It's just functioning highly with them, amidst them, using them to help motivate preparational behavior. Anyways, that's probably too specific. I don't want to explain it right now. But preparation to me is another form of religion, basically, for me. And in some sense, the toolkit mindset theory, where every thought we have is another tool for our mind of learning or acting or communicating, I guess. And the toolkit theory is cool. It's not something I made. It's like some part of ethics that I forget. Some part of the study of consciousness, which I also forget the name of. I don't care. It's in there somewhere. But I care enough to pause. I'm sorry for the distraction. Doing the work and then letting go. That's the Stoic phrase that I hold on to also above many other things. Because I think it covers so much ground about what we should do and how we should form our attitudes around what we do. You do the work, and then you let go. And that's living in the present, kind of, in some senses. Hopefully that doesn't mean slavery work, because I could talk about debt slavery, and I don't like that concept of doing that type of work and then letting go of what? Caring? No. What I'm talking about is doing the work of self-growth and thriving as much as however much you should be, I guess. So now we'll talk about cosmic consciousness, and Alan Watts, and some sources of Taoism that I've read. I've gotten the idea that there's a belief in everything being connected cosmically, consciously, and we're all just apertures of a cosmic conscious existence, observing itself, looking in on itself. That's an Alan Watts quote, not something I made. The apertures especially. Great word. Thanks, Alan Watts. I have a few of his books I haven't read, but I've listened to every YouTube video 50 minutes at a time. I guess I've tried to be like him too recently. Currently. Ernest Hemingway said that he lost his money gradually and then suddenly. It's just a fun segue I liked. And he said that, and The Sun Also Rises, which is a cool book. Douglas Adams, that's another great book. Kurt Vonnegut, that's another great author. Those are just random references. But Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is the book by Douglas Adams. Sorry. Thank you. Those are both some favorite phrases of mine I have heard from Ted Mosby in How I Met Your Mother and Laszlo in What We Do in the Shadows. The Good Place is a great source of philosophical reference. The ending has a great philosophical message. Essentially, I don't think this is a spoiler, but the idea is we do everything for each other as well as ourselves. And why be selfish? Because capitalism suggests that we need to be. John Wayne said that it's going to be hard either way. If you're rich or poor, you're going to have hard moments, but it's a lot nicer to cry in a Mercedes than it is to cry on a bike. And that's sad but true. It's badass, cool to me too, but it's representative of a flaw in the system that I think should be obvious, but I think is also a weird point in history. Late stage capitalism BS, I've heard it referred to. And I like that reference, that term. The book, The Tao, is a great book. Rich resource. Better than The Art of War. Better than Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings. Those are just tactical nerd sources for me. Philosophy has the type of blue resonance that the rest of the green, yellow, and red world is just too ugly for. I don't want to sound like too synesthetic, but nor do I want to be a pre-anti-disestablishmentarianist.